flow steady and how to keep it going for at least an hour. You know?
So here's a question that I get asked all the time, and this is really for Alex, JPG, Ro, and Justin. What is the sweet spot for a podcasting time?
Man.
I don't think there's a right answer.
Yeah. I think it all depends on the show that you're producing and truthfully the guest or the content of that episode.
Yeah.
Look,
I always say start small. You know, I'd say like, you know, there's some, for example, like NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. They have a specific podcast. It's only 8 minutes sometimes. And it's amazing. It's amazing to listen to. So, I mean, if you can do like 10 to 15 minutes with your friends and then, or, I mean, if you can do 4 hours.
yeah,
you know,
I mean, the Joe Rogan podcast is my favorite podcast to listen to. And it's minimum 3 hours these days.
I'm with you. There's a wrestling podcast called Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. Also about 3.5 hours per episode. Yeah. And I can just dig on it the whole time.
Yeah.
Hardcore History is another one.
Yeah.
I think that works
That's a
out because
great
the
one.
content is good. I think what people have to remember is if you're able to produce a really good 30-minute show, then produce an amazing 30-minute show. Don't feel like you have to push it to an hour, and then it kind of gets wishy, and people are going to tune out.
Like, I'll tell you, of the shows, like, because I do kind of different variety of shows. When I do the Spielberg show, it's about an hour and a half at minimum because we're talking about one movie and we're going into every detail. If I do the remake show, we try to do at least an hour, 2 hours, because it's 1 hour about the original film and then 1 hour about the remake film. You actually did.
I did.
Our episode that's coming up soon about Fahrenheit 451.
The movies, I didn't have to read the book.
Yeah.
I love the book.
Yeah.
But I have the other podcast I started up with, which is a podcast about like where it's me and 2 other guys discussing our writing projects. We really said it's got to be an hour because we can't babble on for 2 hours about, did you write this week? So, you know, we have to really keep the topics going and we have to make sure that it's entertaining, and we'll keep ourselves updated, but we don't want to drag it because, you know, after a while, it's like, okay, I get it. You guys are writing. So, you know, we have to try to keep it succinct, but there's 3 of us. So it keeps it interesting and lively. So it really, again, 100% depends on the show.
I have a question for this team here. I know that you guys are really focused on building your brand and developing great content, and you're not thinking about monetization.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, I was the exact opposite. I was coming out of a 20-year, 15-year entertainment career, doing a little bit of acting and touring and producing music.
By the way, Ro was in Sliders. There's a great episode of Sliders that he was in. I swear to God. And 90210. I spent all day watching this episode of 90210 for the right screenshot.
I can't believe
and
you
then
spent,
I posted it.
That's
how I spent my day one day.
Spent that day finding that shot of me.
Jerry
Anyways,
O'Connell Sliders? I just need to know.
he was the director of that episode.
Okay,
I was
just
on,
checking.
So yeah, it was pretty legit. But my point being is, I said I'm doing this for money because I already know I'm an entertainer. I was a little arrogant. I was like, I made my mistakes on the air, and I was okay with that. I kind of believe in that fail forward thing, you know. But what is your plan? I mean, you are in geek media. You're now established personalities. You're building more shows. When do you start thinking about monetization? And isn't that something you have to consider as you develop your content and plan shows?
So I always take this question whenever it gets asked to our network.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be really preachy about this, so I apologize.
All good, man.
No, well, first off, Ro, you got babies. You got to put food on the table. I know where your mindset is, and I appreciate it, right? And I think Alex Cole and I, when we talked about this, of course we want to move towards monetization, making sure that we can support ourselves, and doing this full time would be the dream. But that being said, I'm an educator first and a moneymaker second, and when we talk about comic books and video games and board games, I want to make sure that it's a respected medium, because the one thing I always tell my entire team is if you put your face in front of one of my microphones, you have a responsibility to everybody who's listening, right? And your responsibility is to do good and to say something good.
But is it a business for you, or is it a business, or is it an art project right now? Because for me, I said I'm starting a business. But what is my business going to be? Well, I love geek shit. I'm passionate about it. I can already talk like a fanboy. I'm going to try to figure out a way to monetize it and design a business around it. So is your company or network right now, just right now, are you thinking about it as an art project or a business?
Alex, do you want to take this one?
Well, we're kind of in process of figuring out how to do a little bit of monetization. It's not something we've ever done before because honestly, we didn't feel like we deserved it. I mean,
Really?
you might feel
You
differently.
guys deserve it.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I felt like we were kind of nobodies, and honestly, I didn't think anybody was listening when we started, and it was really just for a project that became a thing that we fell in love with and kept going, and now it's kind of this ball that keeps rolling, and so I think now we're kind of chasing the ball, figuring out, well, what do we do next? How do we take that next step? Where do we go from here? Yeah. So...
And that's two very different approaches, how you took it with yours and how we took it
Yeah.
with ours. Because I love the idea that, for some people, even watching this stream right now, like money might equal that success that
Right.
we're looking for. And that's a completely valuable idea when you want to start something like this, right? I'm not saying that one idea is better than the other.
No, and that's
You
not
just
what
need
I'm
to-
saying
yeah,
easier.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm saying either.
I think that's a great distinction, though,
Yeah.
like what you're making. Like, when you start this, is it a business or is it an art project? And then when you can decide that even before you get in front of the microphone, like then that will really dictate what your
Because
content is.
whether you know it or not, the way you are with your scheduling and your email and your discipline, that's business mindset.
Yes.
Well, I have a
Yeah.
question for you, actually. So, speaking on the opposite side of that coin, you got into this doing it as a business.
Yeah.
And obviously, you do it through a fandom side of a lens.
Mm-hmm.
Did there ever become a time where the fandom side kind of, to you, was like, wow, like this is crazy that I'm able to read?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know this. You came from a very different background.
Right.
It wasn't Star Wars
No.
at first. It was kind of this cryptozoology, Bigfoot kind of stuff. So when you kind of started doing that and then you moved into Star Wars, those audiences are very different. So did you ever get
Yeah.
kind of like starstruck with the fandom of what Star Wars was compared to what you were doing?
I always intended to cross over.
Okay.
So as a business, I had to figure out how can I make a distinction, where can I penetrate market, and I love conspiracy theories and I love UFO shit. So I started a website called, and I would just aggregate video. My decision was always to start with this niche, really tight niche where I can own it because I didn't see good competition there, and build out from there. I ended up taking a weird turn where the UFO was doing okay, but the Bigfoot stuff started going crazy, and I started getting phone calls from TV, and I ended up having my own TV show with Dean Cain.
Wait, because this is no joke.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure anyone knows this, is that you actually are a pretty world-renowned Bigfoot expert.
Yeah, I go on the Discovery Channel and the History Channel every now and then because there aren't very many Bigfoot guys in LA, so I'm like the go-to Bigfoot guy in LA. Although I've turned down the last few calls because I don't do it if there's no money anymore.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, Jezzer, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about the length of a show. You're coming from the YouTube sites very specifically, and we were talking about the sweet spots of that. What are the sweet spots of like a YouTube live stream show for you, or for what you've seen?
45 to about an hour. Depending on the content. If it's
Shorter audience span is what you're saying.
Especially what I've been noticing now, like early on, videos, and then YouTube's picked up on it before. Videos used to be only 10 minutes long. How much you can upload, but then going forward, they've been noticing a trend with like people vlogging and everything, and like people being very engaged in some of the stuff that they're posting. So they kept extending the how long you can post, or how long your videos that you can post. So it really depends on like your fan base and like how much of them, because really you're selling yourselves.
Sure.
Yeah, how much they want to, see of your life or of you. Because I mean the content's gonna be the same. Like people will be they'll have the same content throughout YouTube, especially through YouTube. It's with geek stuff. It's super saturated because everybody gets the same information. Everybody's telling the same news, but you're really, they're not coming here for the news. They're coming here for
Community.
Yeah.
Well, I want to piggyback off of something you just said. Actually, a question I have for you is that since you just said you're selling yourself essentially to an audience, a lot of the questions I'm sure that we've all been asked is, what are the essentials that you need to start? So, in a YouTube audience, Jezzer, what are the essentials that you need?
personally, or just
Well, I mean, just getting started. If there's anybody that's watching this that says, you know what, I want to jump into this. What's the essential? What are some of the things that they're absolutely going to need besides a personality?
whatever you're talking about or whatever stuff you're trying to put out there, make sure that you like love it, because that. Like,
I'm not more so on the technical side of things.
Oh.
Like, what do you actually need?
like some people start off
They're using their phone.
just a phone, and honestly I'm not saying just a phone, because the capabilities of phones now, it's like surpass what some cameras some people use for their cameras, and like they're very intuitive, and everything is like integrated into, especially with YouTube. You can just hit live stream on there and you can live stream directly from your phone. I'm sure you're not going to be able to get like all the fancy like banners and effects or anything, but a lot of people do it, and a lot of people make get tons of subscribers just from live streaming.
Vlogs is what vlogs are all about. Podcast, folks. What are the essentials you need to start?
We actually do an intro to podcasting panel, and we have a list for let's spend $200 on this. Let's spend $400 on this. My favorite thing is that if people are in between the $200 and $400 range, which is gonna be pretty good and will last you for a while, I'd say it's an H4, a small soundboard, XLR cords, and microphones. And you can find there are these honestly, you can order all of this stuff on Amazon right now. It'll be shipped to you in 2 days.
Wow.
And so they'll even give you microphones with only nice cases and stuff and everything, and that's really all you need.
That's the podcast starter kit.
Maybe some pop filters,
I mean, use a phone first. Make sure it's something that you want to do before you're spending money.
I want to bring something up about that. Yeah, it's tech is always the big hurdle that everyone feels like they have to jump over when they decide they want to podcast or live stream or even make a video or a film. And my deal with that is that the tech will be important, but you just got to get started.
Yes.
Just bare minimum. You'd be surprised.
You have to just get started.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much a bare minimum will get you through. And so I'll even argue even if you just start recording off of your phone, even for podcasts, and there's the phone has a decent mic in itself. If you just try that out, and you like what you hear, and you feel like you got something, and then keep going. And if you build an audience, maybe then buy, a recording device or a mic. Because I feel like that's a question where when I hear people I'm dropping this amount for this kind of equipment, I always want to go, slow down.
Yeah, you don't even know if you want to do this yet.
Yeah.
Talk into your phone for 45 minutes
45 minutes! 45 minutes, that's it!
To be fair, before starting, or when I was starting with you guys, I was kind of using a lot of your guys' gear, and out of convenience, I honestly didn't know if I was gonna do it for a while. But you seen me start attaching more stuff onto my camera, out of convenience of me not having to go. It's hey Josh, let me grab this. I just started going on Amazon, just buying a bunch of random ass shit, and just put
his own camera kit together.
Put my own camera kit together, and then we went to New York, and it I probably on the rig that I had. The camera was probably the most expensive, but the rig was probably $60. But we were on a press line in New York, and how many people? So many people, even some of the producers and
it was specifically Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
I remember Pacific Rim. We were doing the press line, and it was right. John Boyega just passed us up, and there's a guy standing next to Jezzer, hey man, how much did your rig cost?
Yeah, and he was looking it up and down. I was $60 on Amazon, bro.
Yeah. That was a true story. Yeah. Jezzer, first of all, beer me.
Yeah.
And second of all, Alex, I have a question. So, talking about personal experiences for a second, when did you start knowing that, okay, this is what I want to do?
I would say it's when we switched Geek Say What. Ooh, passing beer this way. When we switched Geek Say What up from the fake personalities that we started with.
What do you mean by that?
Fake personalities?
Is
this an epic fail that we all get to make fun of you for?
Yes.
Awesome.
Can we get the fake personality on air?
Fake personalities?
Yeah. Okay. It's hard to explain, but we talked to somebody who talked to us about how your brand is so important. Which now we definitely understand that your brand is very important, your personal brand and your network brand. but it's important to do it in the right way. So
We definitely did the wrong way.
Alex's brand was to make fun of us.
Yes.
And it was constantly making fun of us for liking geek culture while she hosted a geek culture podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was based off of Alex from Wizards of Waverly Place, where she doesn't care, but then secretly at the end somehow she like does kind of give a shit and fixes
It's like
things.
Penny from the Magicians.
Yes.
Right.
You took inspiration from Wizards
You know I'm
from
gonna bring
Waverly
that up on
Place?
every
It was
single
a
show.
long time ago.
This is not judging. I'm just like, wow.
I came from like the tween world going into this because I was an intern for a tween magazine for a while. So that was kind
What
of
was
the
your favorite
stuff.
Twilight book?
I've never read it, never watched it. Proudly.
Shit, I see the movies.
Cole
Keep going.
went to the extreme evil of like he would make up bad opinions, which conveniently he just has bad opinions, so it worked out.
Cole has terrible opinions.
But
and
at
I
the
love him
time,
dearly for it.
he
God,
would
he
go
really
to the
does.
extreme and lie about his opinions, and then
What do you
turn around
mean
and
lie about his opinions?
If he knew I was taking a stance, he would take the opposite stance,
so
even
that
though
they
he-
could
He
argue.
didn't really believe in it, but and that works playing devil's advocate. But you have to be invested.
It's
in
not
it,
authentic.
you know?
There's
Yeah.
that's the word,
Yes.
you know, and it's overused these days in content making. If you're not being authentic, people see right through that. That's why I cuss. I drink and I say crazy shit, and I don't care about offending people because that's just who I am, and I'm not going to play a character that
Until the
people
corporate
don't.
sponsorship comes in and tells you to tone it down.
I did stop with some things, but yeah,
Well, yeah, but that's a natural progression.
I won't do coke on the air anymore. So
Yeah, so we kind of amended those, you know, when and we kind of amended the whole persona thing. So now Alex, she really. How would you say you describe yourself now, like in 3 personalities?
Oh, I have no idea.
Really?
I think I'm a terrible person, but I try hard.
Well, what do you say at the beginning of every Ready Set Geek episode?
Oh, I'm the translator for the general population.
that's awesome. See, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said just go on air and fail forward if you have to.
Yes.
You know, but you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Pull out that phone, pull out that camera, whatever, your laptop. Go out and do it.
We have
and
a
it's
list
okay
of
to fail.
mistakes.
You know,
Yes.
your audience was forgiving, right?
Yes.
So it's
We
interesting that we're
have an
talking
audience,
about
it's fine.
characters actually, because I used to have really long conversations with Jezzer actually about creating almost creating this character, which is kind of funny because pulling the curtain back a little bit, this whole cookie face thing, kind of like it's its own brand for you now, which is this kind of like aggressive, you know, guy that does these things, which isn't far from where you are. It is who you are. It just turned up to a 10.
No, but that's like an inside joke for the viewers to ride along with,
Sure,
right?
sure, but I think this whole the idea of the personality that Jezzer was creating, the idea of the cookie face character are very similar.
I did initially try to create this character, then I just kind of like gave up, and then just like I'm just gonna be me. If you guys don't like it, all right, good for you. But people just started latching on to like anything, especially now like I'm always on social media, I'm always on Instagram, I'm always like pretty much that you see on camera, do they seem exactly how they are on screen? And it's like, yeah, for the most part, there's a few of you that aren't. And then he had said that I was the one that was like didn't seem like I did on air. I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, on air you're a little bit more like, what did he say? He said
Disheveled. He's like, you're a little bit more of a hot mess.
no, in person a hot mess.
No, I thought he said, yeah, maybe it was the opposite. Maybe he said in person you're more of a hot mess.
Yeah.
Like disheveled, and on there you seem
be
to put
fair.
together.
Hold on, if that viewer's
I love
watching,
a good hot mess.
to be fair, if you're watching, we were just doing the impossible, not the impossible, but doing some crazy stuff with the convention, and I was trying to like keep everybody doing their shit, and I was a little stressed out.
And you're in a bad mood at that point.
I was a little stressed out over the time, so like
You're fidgeting now just
I
talking
know.
about it.
I'm so mad. I love watching Jezzer get mad. It's probably one of my favorite things in the world. He gets so
And
mad.
then definitely going into this convention, we're in pop culture, right?
Yeah.
I really had like a lot of people there that I really wanted just to confront, but I couldn't.
I like how, first of all, he had a preface that he had to know what channel we were on.
There's so many off-air questions now.
especially at the convention, I had like an axe to grind with some people, and
But you didn't have the veil of the internet to protect you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I felt like the internet and the channel was kind of like handcuffs, kind of keeping me down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Not in your case.
Well,
But yeah.
I'll take another side of that as
Yeah.
well. Like, everybody calls me JPG on the show. Oh, that was all right.
What was that?
It was the trident.
Oh.
Or the pentadent, excuse me.
Just hold it up, Jezzer.
Yeah. Everybody calls me JPG on the show. I don't go by my first name, Jason, for a very specific reason. And that's because when we were signing up for conventions and we were signing up with other people to get interviews, I would say, "Oh, I'm Jason," and then they would look to Cole, who's this 6'4", very handsome, half-white guy, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're in charge, so I'm going to talk to you." And I'm like, "No, he's the dumbest one." It's this idea that when I switched from Jason to JPG, it was like, okay, cool, that is a brand now. And now, like, if I'm not wearing a collared shirt and a tailored jacket and like all this stuff, I'm like, oh, where's that nice professional Asian kid? And when I switched to JPG, that added like another layer of mystery, because it was, oh, like, I want to talk to this guy, instead of having a hard ethnic name and people not giving me the time of day. And unfortunately, that's something that we have to fight against. On this panel are women and minorities.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing that when you think about your brand, when you think about what kind of voice you want to put out there, we have to be conscious of that as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk about branding for a second, because you had just brought up a great point. How do people? Well, first of all, let's break this down. And Ro, actually, you probably might be the best one to do this. What does brand mean?
Okay, well, brand is approached these days it's almost become a corporate word, right? Your brand identity. It's a set of themes that you represent, or it's an idea that you represent, and you build a package that is predictable, right? Like at Starbucks, the Starbucks brand, you might pay $4 for a coffee, but it's going to be high quality coffee, consistent every time, right? That's a brand. In the podcasting world, a brand is a community, in my opinion. Okay? Yes, we have that hashtag show. We have a logo that's recognizable and stuff. But the real engagement, to me, is, when we're interacting and doing our live shows and we're reading comments and doing that kind of stuff. To me, that is your brand, is your community. Like, the Star Wars Fanatics is what I'm known for. The Star Wars Fanatics community is pretty rabid. We've built this community that represents something. That's become my brand. Now, the business side of me that you have to deal with sometimes is like, okay, dude, we're under a corporate veil now. We got to follow these things. This is the law. If money's coming in, we've got to protect that hashtag show, the brand that we've built as this community publication. So there's two sides to that. As a startup podcaster who wants to get into media, to me, the brand is the community. Do you have a community that you can engage with? Are you building a community that you can engage with? That's what I kind of see as your first goal to building your brand. I don't know.
No, I think that's a good answer.
Somewhere in there. I'm about 6 deep now. So.
No, I think that's a great answer, though, because it's who you want to talk to. Who do you want your voice to go to at this point, right? Can you name the age? Can you name the demographic? Can you name like ethnicities or genders or any sort of like marginalized culture? Right. Who are you reaching out to?
So, and like I said, those communities, like for me right now, when I think of that hashtag show as a brand, I'm like, those are the Power Rangers guys. Those are the Star Wars Fanatics guys. Those are the guys that break casting news. We have things that people know us for.
You just named 3 of the things that I'm in.
Right. Our brand is Joe Deckelmeyer.
No, that's that hashtag Joe, apparently, that I was told. I do have another quick question, though. Justin, actually, this is to you. When it's interesting, because you're on a Henshin show, on a hashtag show. However, your film side of podcasting really kind of overshadows that realistically. have you ever thought about starting to branch out into other genres or
Other discussions for podcasts or
yeah?
Once in a while, but the reality is that, like, that's where my headspace lives, is discussing film and superheroes and comics and Japanese pop culture. So there's not much else I feel like I want to branch out of. That's why the writing podcast is the furthest of me branching out of what I usually do.
Is it a comfort zone thing?
It's a mild bit of a comfort zone because I feel like this is where, like I said, it's where my headspace is usually at. If I'm at work, at my regular day job, I'll be thinking about why a movie didn't work, So that's why, because the new podcast I'm working on is a show called Morning Word, and it's like I said, it's me and two other guys, and we're all discussing our current writing projects. I'm working on a screenplay. One of us is working on a comic book. One of us is working on a novel. And that's the furthest I've been about not discussing other people's work. And that's the furthest of me branching out. Because in the other shows I do, even Henshin Hangout, we're deconstructing what we just saw and why it worked and why it didn't work. The Morning Word show is us kind of talking about what inspires us and how we write and our approach to writing. And that's the furthest I've been from what I usually do, which is deconstruct everyone else's projects, more or less. So outside of that, I don't know where else I feel like I would feel that passionate to discuss and use my time to put into.
So that's a great answer. Next thing I want to talk about is audience engagement. But before we do that, audience, I want to ask you guys if you have any questions for any of us. What?